shelter, and support terrorist groups. EAS leaders emphasized the imperative of acting against terrorist groups, violent extremism, and also the use of internet for radicalism and terrorism. Apart from articulating India's position on these issues, which I mentioned above, India welcomed ASEAN's outlook on Indo-Pacific, reaffirmed ASEAN's centrality in the region, and highlighted conversion with our own Indo-Pacific vision. In this light, Prime Minister proposed an Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative to conserve and sustainably use the maritime domain and to make meaningful efforts to create a safe, secure, and stable maritime domain. Focus areas of this initiative include creating partnerships among interested states in several pillars ranging from enhancing maritime security to preserving and sustainably using marine resources, building capacity, disaster prevention and management, as well as working together in trade and maritime transport. Thailand, as the current chair of ASEAN, thanked Prime Minister for this initiative and looked forward to discussing this further. And Australia has already indicated its interest in working with India to develop this initiative. Prime Minister also announced some other initiatives at the East Asia Summit. These included a EAS seminar on maritime security and cooperation, which is scheduled in 2020 in Chennai. In the summit, East Asia Summit, the leaders reaffirmed their commitment to the further strengthening of the EAS, and 3 statements were adopted by the leaders. One on partnership for sustainability, which I mentioned earlier, combating the spread of illicit drugs and cooperation to combat transnational crimes. These were adopted, and to combat the spread of illicit drugs. So these were the 3 statements which were adopted by the leaders. Then Prime Minister, I will go through the bilateral meetings. Prime Minister's bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Japan. In that, the 2 leaders reviewed the progress on Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail project and welcomed the inaugural 2+2 Foreign and Defence Ministerial Dialogue, which will focus on bilateral security and defence cooperation. The 2 leaders also agreed to strengthen bilateral cooperation, including in third countries, for peace, progress and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region. Our Prime Minister looked forward to Prime Minister Abe's visit to India for the India-Japan Annual Summit in December 2019. The second bilateral which Prime Minister had was with the Prime Minister of Vietnam, who will now take over the chair of ASEAN, and so he said that we would fully support Vietnam as it chairs the ASEAN, as it is the chair of ASEAN next year in its work. The 2 leaders then reaffirmed the commitment and the importance that they attach to the comprehensive strategic partnership. They reviewed the progress which is being made in the bilateral relationship, in defense and security. They looked at the economic partnership and working together in various fields, including in the oil and gas sector. They welcomed the commencement of direct flights between the 2 countries. You have a flight now between Calcutta and Ho Chi Minh City, and Vietjet will also be starting a flight from Hanoi to Delhi. So both the leaders spoke about the importance that this relationship has in the Indo-Pacific region. Prime Minister of Vietnam invited Prime Minister Modi to visit Vietnam. And this is a part of the high-level exchanges that we have between the 2 countries. The third bilateral Prime Minister had was with the Prime Minister of Australia, and they also reviewed the entire bilateral relationship, and they affirmed that they would work towards building on the strategic partnership that we have, and all its areas, in particular areas which were mentioned were maritime cooperation, business and investment, defense and security, science and technology. So a range of areas in which the 2 countries will be working together. Prime Minister Scott Morrison accepted the invitation of Prime Minister to visit India, and he would, during his visit, be the keynote speaker at the Raisina Dialogue in January this year, 2020. Prime Minister's last engagement was his participation in the third RCEP summit. India conveyed its decision at this summit not to join the RCEP agreement. This reflects both our assessment of the current global situation as well as of the fairness and balance of the agreement. India had significant issues of core interest that remained unresolved. In his remarks on this subject, Prime Minister highlighted that he was guided by the impact it would have on the lives and livelihoods of all Indians, especially vulnerable sections of society. He spoke of Mahatma Gandhiji's advice on recalling the face of the weakest and the poorest, and then ask if the steps are of any use to them. India has participated in good faith in the RCEP discussions and has negotiated hard with a clear-eyed view of our interests. In the given circumstances, we believe that not joining the agreement is the right decision for India. We would continue to persevere in strengthening our trade, investment, and people-to-people relations with this region. Prime Minister would be returning to New Delhi later this evening. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you very much. The 3 press releases, on Prime Minister's bilateral, they are all uploaded on the website. Any questions? Manish?
On the RCEP, you said that Prime Minister clearly conveyed our decision not to join RCEP. Does that mean that we are not going to be joining RCEP at all, or is it a holding operation, that we have some issues which are not satisfactorily addressed, that before this we heard that negotiations went down the wire? And also the question related to that is that what impact will it have, given the centrality or the increasing profile of Act East in Indo-Pacific in our foreign policy? What kind of message is sent to the region? Thank you.
Thank you, Manish. I'll take all the questions on RCEP if that is okay. Yes, please.
I'm Takeshi Narabe from Japanese newspaper Asahi Shimbun. Regarding RCEP, what is the reason that the government of India has decided not to join RCEP? What is the reason? And one more question is, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs of China already said today that regional economic partnership has made breakthrough progress. Market access negotiations have been completed, but this is 15 parties, and India will continue. So next year, the 15th party decided to sign this agreement. But some ASEAN countries and Japan also, expect India to be part of RCEP, and because as a counterpart of China also. So how do you see this situation, present situation? This is my second question.
Thank you. You have a question? Yes, hold.
Hi, this is Kiran from Nikkei Asian Review, ma'am. You said there are some core issues which cannot be compromised. So could you clarify what those core issues are?
Manas?
That was my question. Ma'am, just wanted to know, whether India has been assured by the remaining 15 RCEP countries that in fact the unresolved issues may be actually looked into in the future.
Anybody else?
Let me make it clear that we have conveyed our decision not to join the RCEP to the participating countries. The reasons for not joining are the participating countries are aware of it. And I can say that we have had a very clear and a principled position for a fair and balanced outcome of the RCEP. But when we did not see that, and we found that, and you're very clear, it is in my remarks why we have taken the decision. We took the right decision in national interest.
I hope that answers all the questions. Any other aspect of Prime Minister's engagement today? Any other question? I see none.
Does India feel in subsequent years, as trade and commerce grows, it will feel left out of the a very major block of free trade agreement? Or India is prepared to again start negotiations perhaps when the issues that concern us are reasonably resolved by RCEP?
I'll just take one more round of supplementaries and then we will end it. On RCEP?
Yeah, on RCEP.
Yeah.
Madam, the RCEP negotiations were also largely about, India-China. We had a summit between our two leaders, say in Mahabalipuram some time back, and they said they will strive for, a positive conclusion to RCEP. Sudhanshuji, if you can also shed light that what were the issues of negotiations going down the wire and having such a big decision not to go ahead. What does it add up to? What were the issues finally, as you say, core issues on which we said we will not compromise on?
You have.
Sorry, similar question. So will you stop negotiating with China for trading issues?
For China?
Let me put it this way, that this RCEP negotiations was among 16 participating countries, and we have conveyed to the other participating countries that we would not be joining the RCEP. So that is where the issue is, and the reason why we were not to be joining the RCEP, I have clearly articulated in my statement, and if you wish I can repeat the statement, but I think you have it, that those are the reasons why we did not join the RCEP.
Thank you. Can we move on to some other topic on the visit? Yes, please.
So you mean you will never join the RCEP? Doesn't mean next year or ever. You will never join.
You see, I
have already conveyed that we have conveyed to the participating countries that India will not be joining the RCEP.
Ever. Okay, thank you.
No, I mean, just no, I think...
I think I can only say what has been discussed and what has been conveyed to the participating partners, and we have told them that India is not joining the RCEP.
Thank you. I don't see any other hand or question. Manas, you have something?
The Australian Prime Minister just a few minutes back, he said that in fact the door for India joining to RCEP will always remain open, ma'am. So,
no, please, I think this question should be addressed to him. I mean, Secretary East has already made it very clear our position, and I think she has answered all the questions. If there are other questions on any other aspect of the visit, we will take on. Otherwise,
on the East Asia Summit, from our point of view, what are the big takeaway? I mean, this is becoming a standard annual diplomatic exercise, but is there something very significant which you would like to re-emphasize or underline?
Of course, it is an annual summit. It is a leaders-led summit, and I would flag to you the Oceans and Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative, which was announced by the Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. This concludes the special briefing from Bangkok. Ma'am, thank you very much, sir. Vikram, thank you all for joining.